Good evening, everyone. It's August 19th, 2024. Another evening of Dine and Learn. I think the second to last of the season. Mr. Hashem. We're talking about the halachos of soldiers. Tonight's Dine and Learn is sponsored by the Miri family. Le'ilui Nishmas of Shalom's mother, Miriam Bas Abba, the Neshama Shirav and Aliyah. So I thought we would talk about Tefillin and Tzitis tonight. Lagabe soldiers, but also more broadly speaking. So let's say soldier in any army. There's the Russian army in the 1800s. So you're stationed in a base, and sometimes they need you to move bases. So what day of the week do they choose to make you move bases? So it could be any day of the week. Probably not a Sunday. Maybe Sunday if there's a military need, but Saturday for sure. So a Jewish soldier is ordered to move from one base to another on Shabbos. So he has to take with him what the army requires of him to take. But what about his other stuff? What about his picture of his family at home? What about his diary? What about his extra underwear that he's not wearing right now? You know, all these personal items, is he allowed to carry them on Shabbos? And it could also apply to the Israeli army. Let's say you're stationed at a base for a week and a half fighting off the enemy, and then comes time to advance on Shabbos. Shabbos is when it's time to advance. The enemy is moving back. So you got to move. You got to take all your stuff and move. So of course you take what you need to take, your gear and your uniform, but what about the other stuff? Are you allowed to take your personal items, your tefillin? Are you allowed to take your tefillin with you? Are you allowed to carry, and this is a shaila that came up again and again for soldiers in non-Jewish armies, are you allowed to carry your tefillin when you move, like if you go on an operation and you come back? So no, you don't take extra stuff. But if you're moving, you got to take. Do you leave your tefillin on the Russian army base? It's crazy to think about that. But how are you allowed to carry it on Shabbos? So the Chofetz Chaim, I think I mentioned this on Shavuos. The Chofetz Chaim published a sefer, the Machane Yisrael, which is a guide of halacha l'maisa for soldiers in the Russian army. So the post can quote a footnote to this Machane Yisrael. I have an edition of Machane Yisrael in the Kol Sifrei Chofetz Chaim, and there are no footnotes in the edition. So I did a little research. I found online the first edition, a PDF of the first edition of Machane Yisrael in 1881. And then I learned what happened was in 1943, what was going on? World War II. So the Agudas Yisrael, the Agudas HaRabbanim asked the Chofetz Chaim's son-in-law. Chofetz Chaim was no longer alive at that point. His son-in-law was in America, Rav Mendel Zartz, and they asked him to publish an edition of Machane Yisrael for American soldiers in the American army, Jewish soldiers in the American army. So he reorganized it, made it a little easier to read, took out some Aramaic, changed some Aramaic to Hebrew. The places I compared, there was no substantive change, just made it easier, and he removed all the footnotes. Good. So I found the original footnote. So this shaila the Chofetz Chaim talks about. So he says a soldier is not allowed to carry on Shabbos his personal items, but if he carries them together with his required items, his gear that he has to carry, like carrying on Shabbos, which is normally us, he's required to carry so if he carries his personal items with the required items together, say in the same bag, so that's what we call ribui shiurim. The shear of what he has to carry is already there, but he's required to carry that. If you add on to that, so the Chofetz Chaim, that's allowed. A lot of poskim would say yes. It does make a difference if it has to be in the same bag. And we'll actually see, to your point even more in Mitzvah Hashem very soon. So just as an aside, the Chofetz Chaim in that sefer says something amazing when he's talking about Shabbos. Something that's l'maisa for everybody who's in the workforce in America or even in Israel, among secular Israelis. He says, on Shabbos you try to do the minimal amount of work possible, right? Because there's a pikuach nefesh situation in the army. For us, we don't do any work on Shabbos in our job. But he said, if you want to find favor in the eyes of your fellow soldiers and in the eyes of Hashem, during the week, work extra hard. Don't do like everybody else. Don't do your fair share. Do more than your fair share. So that people realize when you're not working on Shabbos, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you're principled. Because the rest of the week, you're the hardest worker. We should all be the hardest worker during the week, so that on Shabbos they realize we're taking off because of our religion. And my general rule before COVID, not now, but before COVID, my general rule was Fridays during the summer I would stay late, usually later than everybody else. I would stay late just to make the point that when I leave early on Shabbos, on Fridays in the winter, it's because I have to. But really, I'm a hard worker. That's just an aside. So in the footnote, the elusive footnote that's in the first edition of the Machane Yisrael, so the Chavetz Chaim quotes the Gemara in Yoma, Pei Dalet Amud Beis. And then this is very surprising Gemara in Yoma. It's actually talking about Hilchos Shabbos in Yoma. If a child falls into a sea on Shabbos, lo aleinu, right? That's pikuach nefesh, right? Whoever can save him can save him. So the Gemara says you can spread out a fisherman's net, even though you're going to catch fish in it, which is an Isser D'Oraisa, you're not allowed to catch fish, but because you're doing it to catch the boy, and you catch fish also, that's fine. It's mutter. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Which, the way the Rambam quotes it is fascinating. Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Beis, Halacha Tezayin. So this is where the Rambam talks about pikuach nefesh. Mefachin pikuach nefesh b'Shabbos. Right? We save lives on Shabbos. Ve'ein tzarich litel reshus mebeis. You don't go ask a shayla, you don't go ask a bezdin, am I allowed to do this? No, you do it. Someone's life is in danger, you save it. Ve'amartim lahasil hanefesh harei meshubach. Whoever does it first, praiseworthy. Ketzad ra tinek shenafal layam. You see a baby, a child falls into the sea. Pores mitzuda umaleu. You put out a net and you pull him out. V'afa pishu tzad hadagi mimo. Even though you also capture fish as well, and there's no heter for the fish. The fact that you're doing it together with saving the boy, that makes it mutter. Skipping a little bit, the Rambam continues. Niskavein lahalos dagim. Let's say you wanted to catch fish. You're a fisherman. You wanted to catch fish. Vehele dagim. And you put out your net and you pick up fish, vetinok, and you find in that net a fish. Oh, surprise, I saved the kid. Wow, I'm a hero. Potter. You're potter. Even though you're a fisherman, you're doing your job on Shabbos, you're doing a malacha and it's a d'oraisa. If you happen to also save a life at the same time, you're potter. And says the Rambam even more, afilu lo shama shetova. Even if you didn't know the kid was out there, you didn't know he was out in the sea. Ha'il vehele tinakim adagim potter. Since you took out the fish, since you captured the baby with the fish, you're potter. You got, it's like you hit the lottery. You got lucky. You would have been chayiv misa. Turns out you're not. Turns out you. Which means to us. So you want to carry your personal items on Shabbos. The fact that you have to carry your army gear means that it's all the same act. That is mutter. It should be mutter. Just like fish and the boy, yeah.
Isn't there a halacha if there's a fire on Shabbos? Do I have 1 meal or 2 meals?
Yes. So if there's a fire in the house, you'll have to take 1 meal and 2 meals. But that's assuming you're not doing any isser. Really, you should be able to take whatever you want. But Chazal were worried that if there's a fire, you're worried about your property and you'll end up doing an isser. So therefore, they limited how much you could take out of the house. Here, we're talking about every act is a violation of an isser. But you're very close to a different halacha, which Mr. Shem will mention soon. So you're on the right track. But hold off on that. So maybe there's just pikuach nefesh. So there's a Rashba, there's a Ran in Shabbos on Daf I think Peches Amud Aleph in the Dap Erif. So the Rashba he quotes the Rashba who quotes the Yerushalmi, which says if you're closing the door of your house and there's an animal inside, so normally that's an Isser D'Oraisa, it's a Seder, you're trapping the animal. The Yerushalmi seems to say that if you're closing the door for a mutter purpose, privacy, let's say you want to close your door so your neighbors don't look inside your house, and as it happens you also trap the animal, that would be mutter. And says the Rashba, the way the Rashba understands the Yerushalmi is even if your intent is to trap the animal, your kavana is for the Isser, since you also have kavana for the heter, that makes it all mutter. And the Ran says, you're going too far. You're going too far. It's only if your kavana is a heter and you happen to do the Isser, then it's mutter. Otherwise, it opens the door to all sorts of things, all sorts of haramos. You know, I also, you know, I don't know, you're flipping on the light. You can come up with many situations in which you really want the Isser, but okay, I also have the heter also just to make it mutter.
That would make also if you're going for the fish and then you catch the child, that should also be the problem, right?
Except that's pikuach nefesh. So it could be pikuach nefesh is different. Here we're trying to broaden it to all the other malachos.
Otherwise, you'd be able to allowed to eat the fish. That's.
Once you're doing pikuach nefesh, which is a mitzvah gedola on Shabbos, so then we could say, okay, the fish is
Your
mutter.
intention was isser.
Right, your intention was l'isser, but you got lucky and you saved someone's life.
Is there any weight given to maintaining morale so that if you're a soldier, you're not going to have your tefillin, so your morale is going to be lower than that. So wouldn't that be a way to let you, and then you won't fight as well, and we're more likely to not be successful and be in danger?
There's always, so your question is, what about morale? Would we matter carrying something, let's say, or even tefillin, or maybe even like a picture of your wife and your kids? So that would improve your morale and make you. It's very hard. They do take this into account, but it's very hard to permit something that's asa deraisa on such a remote consideration. And I'm not a soldier, so I as a rabbi, I'd find it hard to be permitted, but there are rabbanim who are much more embedded with the troops and would have more insight into that. But putting that aside, maybe you don't even need that. Except the Magen Avram quotes this machlokes, the Rashba and the Ran, and he says we shouldn't be megal. You shouldn't follow the Rashba. You should follow the Ran, which means if you have kavanah for the Isser, you can't do it. If the same act is mutter and aser, if you have kavanah for the Isser, you can't do it. So says the Chavetz Chaim, as on Shabbos, on Shabbat, it's only right, but on Shabbos it's melechet machshevet, and therefore if you don't have kavanah at all, so then it's shogeg, maybe even less than shogeg, maybe it's just mitasek. But the Chavetz Chaim says so he puts a few things together. He says, first of all, a soldier carrying is almost always going to be only an Issa D'Rabbanan, unless you're, let's say, in Manhattan. What are the chances of being in a major city where there are so many people that there's a Rishus Rabbim D'Oraisa? Very unlikely. So most of the time, 999 times out of 1,000, it's only going to be Issa D'Rabbanan. And second of all, this is a hefsed gadol. You're losing something major. You're losing your tefillin. Tefillin, not only they're expensive, but if you're in the Russian army, where are you going to get another pair of tefillin? It's not going to happen. And your personal items, your diary, you can never get that back. Your personal pictures. So based on that, he says we could follow the Rashba, and he permitted a soldier to carry his tefillin or his personal items along with his army gear. It seems to be in the same bag. So the Kozheglover Rebbe, that's Rav Aryeh Tzvi Frommer, the Eretz Tzvi. He was a big posek, a big. Your mother's cousin. Okay, very very chashuv. I think his brother was also a big posek. Oh really? Ted Zion Av?
Yeah, my mother's.
Oh, your mother's. Okay, not him.
He was in Russia.
Very big posek. Very, very, very important posek. Your grandfather learned it. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, not Harusa.
Learned under him.
Learned from under him.
In Yeshiva University, I think the 5th floor of the library, the 5A, is dedicated in his memory. Apparently, he had a son or a grandson with a lot of money who was a little bit more modern than him, and there's a plaque there of the Kozheglover Rebbe. So he has a tshuva on the subject. He quotes this Chavetz Chaim, the footnote, which made me look for the footnote. So he quotes this footnote, and he disagrees with the whole approach. There's a Gemara in Shabbos in Sadi Gimel Amud Beis that someone who carries fruit in a bowl outside of Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbim, so he's chayiv twice for the fruit and for the bowl. So says the Kozheglover Rebbe. What's the Chavetz Chaim svara? Is once you're allowed to carry something that's mutter, so and you carry something else with it, that's really just one act of carrying. And once it's mutter, you can expand, put more things in it, but it's really one act of carrying. If it's one act of carrying, how could you be chayiv twice for one act of carrying, the bowl and the fruit? So Ella, but he didn't want. He came up with a wild svara to be makel. When I tell this to people, they say, "What?" Says the Kozheglover Rebbe has this radical theory. Says it's the first mission on Shabbos is Yitzias to Shabbos. Right? There are two that are really four. So why does the Gemara use the word Yitzios a Shabbos? The Tosfos asked that question and says because that's the lesson of the pasuk is al yed say ish mim komo. You shouldn't leave your house. You shouldn't carry anything. So because it's Yitzia, so that's why it's uses the language of Yitzia. So the Kosher Glover Rebbe goes even further. He says Hotzah, the malacha of Hotzah, of carrying, of taking from one domain to another, is unique among the malachos. In any malacha, you do malacha on an object. In Hotzah, you yourself are leaving while carrying something. So not only is there an object, there's the actor is an object also. You have to be leaving. Otherwise, it's something else. It's Hoshata, it's Zrika, it's Zorek, you throw it. Hotzah itself, you are carrying it, and without you, there's no malacha. So therefore, if you're carrying something mutter, your personal hotzah is mutter. You're allowed to do your part of the malacha is mutter. So once you add something usher to the bundle, yeah, you have the object, but there's no actor who is subject to the isser, and therefore he says it's always mutter to hotzah, not other malachas. Hotzah itself, you're allowed to add to it, because as long as you yourself are doing the hotzah beheter, anything you add to that does not fulfill the requirements for the malacha. It's
Shouldn't it be that way for any mitzvah? Well, what's 2 versus 1? What difference does it make? You're always mutter to go out, right? So what does it matter if you're carrying 1 item or 2 items?
no, you're carrying something. Your act of carrying is usher in a normal case. Here, your act of carrying is mutter. So the fact that they're throwing something else on there doesn't change that act of. It's very. You're right. It's very, fine and subtle, and really nobody really appreciates. Nobody goes in that direction. He's really a lone opinion, a lone voice in that way. But according to him, and he was asked a Shiloh whether a soldier can carry his tefillin on Shabbos, and he said carry personal items, and he said yes. So in Hungary, in pre-war Hungary, there was a Talmud Chacham named Rav Moshe Tzvi Landau who published a commentary in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch called Shulchan Melachim. He's most famous for being controversial because he criticized some psukim of the Minchas Elazar, who was the Gadol Hador in those days, and the Oy Vavoy if you got on his wrong side, and not Chas v'Shalom Minchas Elazar said anything, but some of his followers, they published Sfarim against him and bans on and all sorts of terror. So I looked at Shulchan Melachim, very, very interesting sefer. The most important thing is who he quotes in this. But he was asked his Shiloh, whether a soldier can carry his tefillin on Shabbos, and he says, number 1, carrying is only asur midirabanan in all these situations because they're not carrying it in Reshus Harabim Deraisa. Number 2, he's carrying it with a shinui. He's not carrying it in his hands. It's in his bag on top of other stuff. It's indirect. And number 3, we have the Rashba who would permit it anyway. So the most important thing is he asked the Levushe Mordechai Leib Winkler, who was a huge posek in Hungary in those days, and he agreed. And so this is really an important source for a psak of the Levushe Mordechai that a soldier is allowed to carry his tefillin on Shabbos. And this the Levushe Mordechai also quotes. There's a Chelkas Yaakov who quotes this, and he also adds that there's a din in Shulchan Aruch, and if you're caught walking and Shabbos falls on you, and you're still carrying stuff, what are you supposed to do with your wallet? What are you supposed to do with what you're carrying? So the din is normally you have to drop everything you have and just go. But a wallet, the Chazal will worry that you're not going to drop your wallet and you're going to carry it and violate an Isser, possibly Deraisa. So instead, they said carry it with a shinui. They say put it between your waist and your belt or your pants. Carry it that way in an unusual way. That way it lowers the Isser. So there's special heter for a wallet. So this happened to me, Lamaisa. I was on the train only once. Baruch Hashem, it only happened once in my career. Coming back from Manhattan Erev Shabbos, there was a police officer was attacked in the Flatbush College train station, and I was in between that station and the previous station on the train. And then when a police officer is attacked, forget about it. Shut down everything. The attacker ran onto the tracks and started running. So they shut down all the electricity on all the tracks, and we're stuck there for an hour and a half. I was actually coming home early, but we were stuck there for an hour and a half. Finally, eventually, I guess they caught him and they brought us backwards to the previous stop. A lot of front people there. So on the spot, so I said, okay, we'll give all our belongings to the firemen were there. I don't know why firemen, but their firemen were there. Were evacuating people. So give everything to the firemen. So a group of us went to the firemen and said, it's ready after sunset on Friday. Here's all our stuff. Can you take it to take it to the firehouse? And the guy said, I don't know what you're talking about. Called over the fire chief, and said, these people want me to take their stuff. And the fire chief said, of course, it's Shabbos. Apparently it's been done before. So the fire chief said, don't worry about it. Here's where our fire station is. Come after Shabbos is over. It'll all be there. In Khilah, we came after Shabbos was over. It was all there. But I told people, keep your wallets to carry with the shinoi, and keep your cell phones to carry with the shinoi. Cell phones, because we're walking through a not so nice neighborhood. I said, keep it on. You never know if you're going to have to call 911. And the wallet is the Mefurish Din in the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch that you're allowed to carry. Both of them carry the shinoi. So I told people you only have one place in front of your belt. So I told people put your cell phone in your sock and your wallet, between your stomach and your belt. And that's what people did. When I came back, I asked Shiloh's after the fact, and Rabbi Mendelsohn and others said cell phones are just like wallets nowadays. Cell phones are like wallets. But generally speaking, this Halachos Yaakov said it applies to other personal items that are very important to you. You're allowed to carry the shinui, and therefore he said tefillin is also very important to you. You could carry it with a shinui. So he also passed. There was one posek I found who disagreed. Rav Chaim Tzvi Teitelbaum. Anyone heard of Rav Chaim Tzvi Teitelbaum? He was the older brother of the Satmar Rav. Why did he become the Satmar Rav? He unfortunately was nifter young, in his 40s, but he was a huge genius like his brother, and he published tshuvas, or they published his tshuvas that he wrote while in his 30s and his 40s. Aseh Chaim, Sefer Aseh Chaim. You can find it online. So he has a shaila on this question, and he disagreed with the Chofetz Chaim. He said, no, you can't take your tefillin because. You carry your army gear. Fine, that weighs a certain amount. I don't know how many grams, kilograms, whatever, you add it all up. Put on tefillin, that weighs more. So you're only allowed to do ribu ishurim, to expand. Let's say you have a heter to pull a date off a tree for pikuach nevesh. So you can pull off one branch. That's one pull. If it has 2 dates on it, you win. That's ribu ishurim. But if you actually have to do more malacha, you pull twice. You can't pull twice. You can only pull once. And so too with carrying, he says, if you add more weight, so that's an extra malacha, so you're not allowed to do that. He says that's not considered ribu shurim, that's actually considered more malacha. It seems to be a das yachid.
Maybe not adding more weight, you're putting subsequent stuff as opposed to doing it in one action, you're doing it in multiple actions.
Well, if you're doing it in one act, I think the people who disagree with him, why they disagree with him, is because Lamai says it's one action. It's all in one bag.
It's all one bag.
So yeah, it weighs more, but is that more of a malacha? It's hard to say that carrying something heavy is more of a malacha than carrying something light. The isser is hotzah or havara, whatever it is. It doesn't matter how heavy or how light it is, generally speaking, as long as it's above the shear.
What about putting on
Oh, wearing it? That would be even better. I don't know if the army would approve of that. Maybe the Israeli army would approve it. But I don't think the Russian army would let the soldiers travel. That's a good idea, though. That is a good idea. Okay, so just a few minutes we have left. Let's talk about a soldier wearing tzitzis. So after October 7th, I'm sure you're all aware, there was a huge demand for tzitzis, particularly in the Israeli army. And the Israeli army has this rule that the beged, the actual garment, has to be khaki. It has to be so all the tzitzis that were sitting in the stores were useless. They can't take a white beged, and so there was a lot of people were putting tzitzis strings on khaki garments. It was a big thing.
Does the strings have to be green?
No. That is a shaila, but the answer is.
I have khaki. I have these army. I always wonder why aren't they green?
It's a machlokes between there is a machlokes rishonim on the subject. We generally assume the minig is tzitzis are always white. I mean, except for tchelas. Putting that aside. So the question is, though, on very hot days, any additional garment you're wearing, it really adds to the stress of the heat. And if you're in battle, or if you're going on a 12-mile hike in the desert with the sun beating down on you, so that adds to the stress. And maybe a soldier shouldn't wear tzitzis in that situation. And number two, a soldier in the desert, you're going to sweat a lot, and the tzitzis garment is going to get gross. and maybe that's disrespectful to the actual tzitzis garment. So the shaila has been asked many times: should a soldier use a judgment on when to take off his tzitzis or when not to wear tzitzis? So I'll just say briefly, because you all know, generally speaking, the obligation is not to wear tzitzis beged. It's if you're wearing a four-cornered garment, you have to have tzitzis strings on them. Nowadays, we don't wear four-cornered garments. In times of Chazal, they did. Nowadays, we don't. So we intentionally put on a four-cornered garment so that we can become the mitzvah. And the Gemara in Menachos, Mem Aleph Amud Aleph, says, Rav Katina, a malach came to Rav Katina. Rav Katina was wearing a garment that did not have four corners, so he didn't have tzitzis. And a malach came to him and said, warned him that he's going to be punished for not wearing tzitzis. And Rav Katina said, "What do you mean? I'm not chayiv in tzitzis. I don't have four corners. The mitzvah is only on four corners. I don't have four corners." And the malach said, "Yeah, you're a bit too smart. And when there's the idin rischa, when there's a time of divine anger, so you're punished for not fulfilling a mitzvah's aseh. Because, it's not explicit, but because we're supposed to want to do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are opportunities. And an easy mitzvah, why wouldn't you do it? You should do it. And that's why we wear tzitzis garment every day, because it's an easy opportunity to get a mitzvah. We want to do Hashem's will, so that's why we do it." The Psachim, Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, says 7 people are menuda mina shamayim, are excommunicated from heaven, and one of them is someone who doesn't wear tzitzis. And Tosfos says there are 2 days in Tosfos. One day in Tosfos is you have a tzitzis garment, but you don't put it on. You just walk all day without your tzitzis. It's sitting in your drawer at home. And that person is menuda mina shamayim. Second opinion in Tosfos is no, you don't even own it. But you didn't go out and buy it. For that, you're menuda mina shamayim. So we want to wear tzitzis. We try to. So there's a shaila: are you allowed to wear tzitzis on your skin, or do you wear it? The normal way to wear it is on top of your undershirt. Well, let's say you're not wearing an undershirt. Are you allowed to wear it on your skin? So that's a machlokas poskim. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says yes. So it's a garment. You put the tzitzis strings on your garment, but the beged itself is a garment. You wear an undershirt on your skin. You could wear tzitzis on your skin. Rebelsky says no. Rebelsky and others hold that it's disrespectful to the mitzvah. Tzitzis is a beged shel mitzvah to some degree. You are allowed to wear it into the bathroom, but it's a beged shel mitzvah, so you should not put it on your skin because it's disrespectful. In my day, in the 1980s, there was a sefer published in Eretz Yisrael for teenagers in Bnei Akiva on tznius issues called Kadoshim Tiyu by Rav Shmuel Katz. It was all the rage because whatever. So he asks all the tough questions, gives all the tough answers, and he went to Gedolim. He went. So on this issue of boys wearing tzitzis while playing basketball, so he asked Rav Yosef and Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, and Rav Yosef said, "Yeah, you're allowed to wear tzitzis on your skin when necessary. You don't have to. If it's not necessary, you shouldn't, but you're allowed to." And Mordechai Eliyahu said, "No." So what do you do when playing basketball? Everybody agrees that it's better to wear tzitzis on your skin than not wear tzitzis at all. So if you're going to take off your shirt and wear nothing, you should have your tzitzis on your skin. But if you're going to have a shirt, so put the tzitzis over your shirt. So based on the above, should a soldier wear a tzitzis? A soldier should, lechatchila, wear a tzitzis on top of his undershirt. If he's too hot, he should wear. They make really light garments that you could wear so that it minimizes the amount of heat that's generated. You should wear that. But so Shlomo Aviner was asked. So some commanders in the army order their soldiers to take off their tzitzis. They say you're going on a long hike. Every ounce, every gram, whatever they use of extra weight on your body is going to drag you down. You're not allowed to wear a tzitzis garment. And so some soldiers asked for Shlomo Aviner, who he himself served in the army. He served in the IDF. And he said, it's important to wear tzitzis. This is he doesn't quote this, but the Oznidber of Binyamin Yeshua Zilber said that, why do we wear tzitzis? To remember the mitzvos. To remember that we are chayiv in mitzvos. Hashem has commandments that He wants us to do. So if, says Binyamin Zilber, if when you're learning and when you're davening, you need to wear tzitzis. So when you're playing basketball, when you're doing leisure activities, well, kal v'chomer, you should wear tzitzis. So said Rav Shlomo Aviner, it's important for a soldier to wear tzitzis, to remember that there's a God above us, and you have to follow halacha. So he doesn't, and he also said, I was a soldier. I don't understand what a commander is thinking when he says a pair of tzitzis is going to make a difference. But he said you have to follow orders. You have to follow orders. So I have here a sefer by Rav Yosef Tzvi Rimon. It actually has 2 volumes. This is volume 1. Halacha Mimekora on Sava. This is, and in here, he goes through the sugya of wearing tzitzis. He also served in the IDF. And he says, technically, a soldier is patur. Everybody's patur. You don't have to put on a garment of tzitzis. And especially in the heat and everything. But then he says, listen to this. Lamros zos. Despite this, lamaisa lo kedai lahakel. It's not kedai. It's not right. You shouldn't. It's not worth it to be lenient. Gam biglal hefsed mitzvah. Also, number 1, you're losing out on the mitzvah. Gam biglal tazkaras mitzvos Hashem hachashuva. Also because of the reminder of all the mitzvos. Kokach b'miuchad b'msios tzva'is. And specifically, especially in the reality of the army. Rav Asher Weiss has a tshuva about this. Something else in Khilah Gimel Siman Mem Zayin, and he's much more lenient. He says when soldiers ask him, he said, "Look, if it's too hot, if you can't handle it, don't wear tzitzis. You're not chayiv." So I wrote about this once. I published about this, and I got a rabbi who is currently serving in the IDF reached out to me, and he said, "I don't understand. You've never been in." He actually said, "You don't understand. You've never been in the desert. You've never been in Gaza in the hot weather. It makes a difference. It makes a difference." So I said to him, "Yeah, but the 2 rabbis I quoted who served in the IDF, they're the ones who said, yes, wear tzitzis. And Rav Asher Weiss, who did not serve in the IDF, he said, don't wear tzitzis." So how could you explain it? They were there, and they're poskening, don't wear tzitzis. And he said, "Yeah, he said, I don't get it. I don't get it." I mean, Lamaisa, it's not Lamaisa for any of us. Maybe for your boys, but it's not Lamaisa for any of us. And of course, ask your own Rosh Hashiva, your posik, or the Rav. But I found it fascinating. Number 1, the big takeaway I took from here is number 1, how important tefillin is, that you could even carry it on Shabbos in certain circumstances. And number 2, tzitzis. The poskim who's personally served the soldier is saying it's important. You should wear tzitzis. It will help you. And we should all take that away from it as well.
For the religious soldier,